Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here coming to you with another video, this time for the 15th week of the 2023-24 NBA season, covering the period February 3rd to February 9th. End of the trade deadline, some interesting moves, nothing superstar-esque, but certainly some moves for some teams that really look like they are wanting to make a genuine push and certainly look to secure themselves, if not the playoffs this year, but certainly for years to come. One in each conference. We'll certainly get to those, and a couple of interesting ones as well. I think there were a couple of teams that certainly sat tighter than expected. There were some superstars and some players that certainly remain in places we didn't expect. There were a couple of movements that will, try and boost a couple of teams. I don't think they're going to be too major, but some really interesting movements over the week and some interesting results as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. Week 15. February 3rd to February 9th of the 23-24 NBA season in the East with Atlanta, 2-2 in the week, 23-29 on the season. Defeated Golden State and Philadelphia, lost out to the Clippers and Boston. Trae Young, their best player on the week, 29.3 points, 1.3 rebounds, 10 assists, and 1.3 steals a game, around the 5 turnover a game mark. That is really, as much as people want to talk about how well he's playing, and we can certainly get to that in a second, observing those ones there for Trae Young. Had 2 games over 57%, 3 games over 47%, had the real down game against Boston where they lost by 8, but overall trying to keep up appearances. It was those turnovers though really kicking in and really causing an issue there. Of course, the other big news that was floating around for Atlanta is the fact that Dejounte Murray and Trae Young both not leaving the team. A lot of speculation as to whether Dejounte Murray was going to be a Laker or whether he was going to be a member of the Golden State Warriors. Speculation that Trae Young was going to be a Laker, but it seems like both of those guys are staying put, and they'll be staying put for the time being. Not sure whether that means it'll be a semi-permanent to permanent basis, but it's certainly something that they were looking to do from here on in. Very interesting times to know exactly what Atlanta are thinking for both of those gentlemen. Very interesting times to see exactly what both of those individuals are thinking. But right now they have a really good guard combination. Just a matter of time as to whether they keep them, whether they move them both on. But yeah, no movement for Atlanta in that sense. They have kept pretty stable and are going to try and make a run the 9th or 10th seed with what they've got right now. Boston 3-0 on the week, continuing to roll, 40-12 on the season. Defeated Memphis, Atlanta and Washington. Jason Tatum with a nice week, 29.7 points, 9 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 1 steal and 0.7 blocks on 2.3 turnovers. 49.2 from the field, 93.3 from the free throw line. Would have liked a little bit more from deep at 31.4. Boston just continue to roll. Tatum into the All-Star game along with Brown. Not much more really needs to be said there. Boston, one of the best performing teams on the week. Certainly the best team performing in the season now in the East, and with the topsy-turvy nature of the West right now, Boston needs to certainly really look at how much they can tighten the screws a bit on this Eastern Conference. Milwaukee, they're rattled a little bit, so you would have to think that it is going to be a New York or Cleveland that's going to continue to push them here towards the middle of the month and certainly towards March there. Boston ticking along, playing really good basketball. Not much else that needs to be said there. I do agree with something I heard during the week, though, that people aren't necessarily sleeping on Boston because Cleveland's likely to beat them or because New York's likely to beat them. People are sleeping on Boston for the pure and simple fact that they need to work out whether they are not going to break down themselves, or maybe their opposition that beats them. It would certainly just be themselves. Over to Brooklyn, 1-3 on the week, 20-31 on the season. Defeated Philadelphia, lost out to Golden State, Dallas, and Cleveland. And honestly, they're pretty lucky that Philadelphia is without Embiid, or they would have totally been blown to pieces. Would have been a 0-4 week. Mikal Bridges, 22.5 points, 3.3 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 0.8 steals, and 0.3 blocks. 44% from the field, 80% from deep, 80% from the line, 37.2 from deep. Just one of these ones here with Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie is now off the team. He's been cleared out, likely to pass waivers, and likely to head to either Los Angeles or Dallas at the way this one is currently pointing, and the way this one is currently heading. So Cam Thomas certainly being brought in as that absolute number one there as far as just pure offensive option. Mikal Bridges definitely the number two. I do wonder what Brooklyn's going to look to move from there. Dinwiddie had been venting his frustrations with the team for a number of months at this point, so to see him gone is not a shock. It's going to be a matter of what replaces him. Charlotte didn't win a game on the week, 0-4, 10-41 on the season. Yes, 10-41 on the season compared to Boston, who are 40-12. Again, lost all their games, lost to Indiana, the Lakers, the Raptors, and the Bucks. Brandon Miller with his best week, and a guy who's really trying to step up and out as one of the rookie contenders throughout the year. Certainly hasn't been the rookie of the year. Very hard when it has really been a two-horse race, and certainly for the last month, a one-horse race there. But playing some nice basketball, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block a game, less than 3 turnovers, 44.7 from the field. That will only get better as time goes on, as with the 35.1 from deep, 83.3 from the free throw line. Easy to work with. Charlotte, just one of the many, many bad teams in the NBA this year. Really simple. They've been one of the many bad teams in the NBA for a couple of years now. It's going to be really interesting to see what goes on there. PJ Washington no longer a member of that team either. So, yeah, there's just a little bit of movement. It'd be interesting to see exactly what goes on here with Charlotte. They are really needing to buy in wholeheartedly to their leadership and their young guys to really get the job done from here. And I think Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, clearly the ones. Miles Bridges didn't move, so they're clearly still set on the 3. Interesting times ahead for Charlotte. Chicago 2-1 on the week, 25-27 on the year. They're slowly getting back to 500. Defeated Minnesota and Memphis, lost out to Sacramento. A nice effort there from DeMar DeRozan. 29.6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2.7 steals on the week. Less than 2 turnovers, or just at 2 turnovers a game. 48% from the field, 50% from deep, 94.7 from the free throw line. This has been the real key right now for DeRozan. It's really the fact that he's stepping up, he's able to mentor a Kobe White, and they've been able to really wade through the ocean that has been Zach LaVine this season. He's really had some issues. He's opted to go under the knife to end the season. Looked like he was going to be a trade piece. Chicago not making any serious moves either, so they're going to try and run it with what they've got, and they're going to be competing Atlanta, 9th and 10th seed in the East. But they're slowly getting towards 500, which is something that Atlanta certainly aren't doing right now. A team that's well above 500, and they are charging away and certainly up the ladder in the East. That's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Won all of their games. Defeated the Spurs, the Kings, the Wizards, and the Nets. 34-16 on the season. Donovan Mitchell, their best player on the week. 31.8 points, 5.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 2 steals, 1.3 blocks, less than 3 turnovers, and 50-40-100 splits. They now have Darius Garland and Evan Mobley back, and they're still winning games. They saw their limitations last year when they were bounced considerably in that first round. Well, with the way they're going at the moment, I don't think the first round would be an issue. They would have to have a severe matchup discrepancy, or they would have to have some severe injuries occur on their team in order for them to not be looking at the postseason right now. Chemistry-wise, it's going to be interesting because you're not going to know, at least for another couple of weeks, how this team's going to look with everyone back in it. But the way they're moving right now and the way they're looking certainly wouldn't be going against the grain, and certainly wouldn't want to be tipping against them. Very much a Smokey as the second option coming out of coming out of the East behind Boston. Well, I certainly don't have them on par there at the moment. They're having a really nice season, and Donovan Mitchell continuing to rise up my MVP ranks, and certainly a guy who many people just seem to forget about in the way he's been playing. Detroit 2-1 on the week. I can't believe I've just said that, so I'll say it again. Detroit 2-1 on the week, 8-43 on the season. That sounds a little more relative. Defeated Sacramento and Portland, lost out to Orlando. Their first back-to-back win since October. Jaden Ivey with a really nice week. 27 points, 4 rebounds, 4.7 assists. However, it's the 4.7 turnovers where he's really going to need to step up that game as well. 50% from the field, but had a really, really nice week again. 77.8 from deep, 78.6 from the free throw line. This man would be better off just jacking up threes and trying to get to the line. That's how good of a week he had. Big news for Detroit. They move on Alec Burks, they move on Bojan Bogdanovic, and all of a sudden you're looking at a team that has totally gone to the wall, nothing but their rookies, nothing but young players. Now, I don't necessarily like the move. I think Bojan Bogdanovic to any team is major for them, of course. That'd be just a silly assessment, considering you've seen the impact that he's had at multiple franchises. But you have to understand the impact that a veteran is going to have on a really young squad. And that's exactly the kind of impact that he would be needing to have on such a young squad. He's not going to be able to do that now, but with his transfer to the Knicks, and we will get to them very shortly, it certainly turns them into a genuine top 3 contender in the East. And I'm not saying that they're going to be a championship team, but it's certainly going to make them a lot more competitive in the postseason when you have one of the best 3-and-D guys the league has seen for the last few years sitting on your sideline, having as a crucial rotation. So for Detroit, they're back to that building block there. It's going to be Jaden Ivey, it's going to be Jalen Duren, it's going to be Asar Thompson, it's going to be Cade Cunningham. We'll see how they go. They're going to have to build it as the core. And Joe Harris released as well. Alec Burke's gone. So you get rid of your 2 best wing shooters, you get rid of another semi-veteran presence, and you're looking to go all in. Let's see what Detroit can do. Indiana on the week, 2-1 on the year, 29-24, defeated Charlotte and Houston, lost out to Golden State. Pascal Siakam has, for me, probably come in and unfortunately for Halliburton, somewhat overshadowed his season just with the way he's been playing. I mean, Siakam had a nice start to the year in Toronto. They're not winning games, but he's having just as much of an impact right now here for the Pacers. 23.3 points, 6.7 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 0.7 blocks, less than 2 turnovers, 59.6 from the field, over 50% from deep. I'd like to see the free throws improve. For Indiana, it's now making that move that because Buddy Hield's gone. He's gone to Philadelphia. Don't worry about it. They've now got this opportunity with Siakam and Halliburton, and I think it's almost very similar to a Randall and Brunson. You now can refine your offensive processes, and these are the 2 guys they're going to be able to run it through. And honestly, not a bad combination. A guy who's made his case as the All-NBA first-team point guard this year, certainly All-NBA level guard. Whether you have him in the first team or not is at your discrepancy. But you're going to run him then through with a small forward, power forward, who can, cover all NBA level numbers as well. You've then got the presence of a Neesmith. You've got the presence of a Ben Mathurin. You've got the presence of a TJ McConnell, Miles Turner. Still some good pieces in Indiana, and a nice bit of conversation about a returning player next year, depending on the situation over on the West Coast. So a lot going on for Indiana right now. They are just becoming a target team. That could be a very, very interesting season and a very interesting situation as the year comes to a close. As I mentioned, they're 2-1 on the week, Fulham 29-24 on the season. Miami, they were 2-1 on the week. They're 28-24 on the season. Defeated Orlando, and San Antonio lost out to the Clippers. And Jimmy Butler with a pinch-hitting effort to lead the team. 20.3 points, 7.7 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 2.7 steals, 0.3 blocks, just 2 turnovers a game, 47.5 from the field, 41.7 from deep, 85.7 from the free throw line. This is where it gets a little interesting. We've spoken about the impact Jimmy Butler has on this team. We've spoken about where he probably really should sit in the pecking order of this team. But he's still there helping them get the job done when it matters the most. It's not ideal because you want him to not be your number 1, but you don't disagree with the idea that Jimmy Butler is up there as one of your number 1 players. I think it'd be ludicrous if you're upset at that. Really ludicrous. As I mentioned, I still feel Bam Adebayo is the best person on this team. I think it's his team. I still think he's the number 1. But the core of what the Heat are, what Miami is exactly Jimmy Butler. Dogged, a competitor, fiery, but needs to get results and needs to get the job done. And Jimmy Butler's quite happy to put the team on his back to get it done. Really nice effort there from him. The Heat still looking to tick along. They're now above 500 by a couple of games. They will once again want to grow that a little further. And Jimmy Butler certainly just reminding a few people as you get to the All-Star break that, look, I might not have been there during the voting process, but I'm very much on the precipice right now. And I wouldn't be want to be an awfully injured player towards the All-Star game with the form that Jimmy Butler's in, because he can and he will take that place. That's the ability that he has. Milwaukee, 1-3 on the week, 34-19 on the season. They have not had a good run since Doc Rivers turned up, and everyone knew something was going to go wrong. Doc Rivers doesn't have the greatest of reputations surrounding success, particularly when they're off the back of a championship a couple of years ago, and now they're not winning. And it's going to be a real question about when they are going to really be able to compete and win again. They've looked to have had a couple of dips there in the conference, which is not ideal preparation for them at all. Giannis, 29.4 points, 8 rebounds, 7.8 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.6 blocks a game. Beyond the field, not overly impressive. Turnovers are down, 2.8 a game on the week. That's okay. 61.5 from the field, awesome. But 23.1 from deep, 61.5 from the free throw line. There's a lot of work still to be done there, and there's still a lot of chemistry to be done, to be built, particularly now that Pat Beverley has joined the team. When you consider the importance of Pat Beverley on the defensive end, when you look at the prevalence of Damian Lillard on the offensive end, great little duo of a guard situation there. But at the end of the day, they are very one-sided and one-way minded in the way they play that game. So it's all well and good to have Damian Lillard going crazy, but you do know that Patrick Beverley has to be the primary defender of his man. And beyond that, you know they're going to have to try and feed to Middleton, to Giannis, to Lopez, to Portis, guys of that ilk, if they're going to have any success from there. Pat Beverley can hit up some efficient points when he needs to. Doesn't need to be a primary scorer. Anyone who thinks that on this team, well, just a really, really wild scenario for yourself would be the best way that I would put that. Over to New York, big week, as I mentioned in the trades. Bogdanovic, Burks, didn't lose much for it. A team that's genuinely redefined their 1-2 combination and who should be controlling their offense. And I don't think they're going to be bringing in anyone that's going to look to impede on that team either. Is probably going to be the best way to do it. You are not bringing in any cancerous members to the locker room, any culture-changing guys to the locker room. You bring in 2 impact players who look to win, who look to get the job done. Very coachable indeed. Just to throw it back a little bit to Charlotte there, Gordon Hayward also gone. Massive, massive news when we get to that team there as well. But for New York, 1 and 2, 33-19, they defeated Memphis, lost to the Lakers and Dallas. But Dante DiVincenzo was their best player on the week. 31.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal a game, 0.7 blocks, 2 turnovers, 50, 40, 70 splits on the week. And that's not bad considering the absolute form that Jalen Brunson's been in, and considering the conversations around Julius Randle as well. So great to see him chipping in, getting it done. Certainly a little maligned for me. I think at times he underperformed as a member of the Warriors, and I certainly think at times he underperformed as a member of the Bucks. But if he's going to get his opportunity in New York to ball and they're going to have some success, hey, more power to him. To Orlando, 2-1 on the week, 28-24, a team that is back crawling above 500, just looking to get things done once again. Young guys stepping up, and certainly not the one that normally has, as they defeated the Spurs, defeated the Pistons, lost out to Miami. Franz Wagner really looking to step up compared to his earlier form in the season, when I had him very, very much in the conversation of my MVP race. On the week, 28.3 points, 5.7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 0.7 blocks on 2.7 turnovers. 61.4 from the field, 44.4 from deep, and 100% from the free throw line. This is what I speak about when we're talking about individuals who are looking to grab a hold, who are looking to take that next step, who want to be the leader, or young sides that, you know, you might have a 1 or a 2 and a genuine hand in the air as I am the man, such as that Banchero has done over the last 5-6 weeks. But you still need someone of the ilk of a Wagner who is still going to be able to go, well, don't forget about me, because I can still chip in and I can still get things done as well. Another prime example right here is what he is doing for the Magic. Hits big shots, makes big plays, part of that really efficient defense. Just getting things done where they can, back above 500 comfortably, well, certainly with a little more comfort, not comfortably, but certainly with a little more comfort. We'll see how the growing weeks go. We'll see exactly how they look when they get to that All-Star game, and exactly see how they look at the end of February. He's going to be a really crucial player. He's going to need to have big minutes in the playoffs. He's going to need to have big games in the playoffs. Him and Banchero just need to be wary, though. The scout is going to be about, especially Banchero. 2 years in, they're going to want to stop you. They're going to want to stifle the momentum and the confidence that you've got. Philadelphia 0-4 on the week. Didn't win a thing. They're now 30-21. They've come back to the pack a fair bit. Lost out to Brooklyn, Dallas, Golden State and Atlanta. Kelly Oubre Jr., their best player again, 18.5 points, 6.3 rebounds, 0.8 steals, 0.5 blocks, 0.3 assists, 0.3 turnovers. But it's that pedestrian 35.4 from the field, 20.8 from deep that really kills any momentum going his way. Very, very tough for a team to try and stay in contendership when the best guy who played in every game is shooting less than 40% from the field. Also very tough considering they're now saying with Embiid it is going to be 1 to 2 months with a meniscus. They're trying to top up. They're trying to get guys in that are going to be able to fix the situation. Buddy Hield's certainly one of those key cogs, and it sounds like Kyle Lowry might be a key cog there as well. But I don't know if Tyrese Maxey, Buddy Hield, and an aging veteran restricted Kyle Lowry are going to be key from an on-court standpoint to try and fix Philadelphia. Not immediately anyway. I think you would see the fruits of their labour in another 12 months. Just as far as wanting to, hey, we've been in a losing situation, here's what it's like to be a winner. Or, hey, I'm in a losing situation, I'm over here. Look, I'm ready to change things up. I think that's when we're going to try and see a few different changes there for Philadelphia. But at the moment, it is still relying on the fact that they need to keep in the balance without Embiid on the floor. Toronto 2-2 on the week, 19-33 on the season. Defeated Charlotte and Houston, lost out to Oklahoma City and New Orleans. Scotty Barnes, the recently selected injury replacement in the All-Star game, 16.8 points, 6.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 0.5 steals and 1.5 blocks, less than 2 turnovers. But another pedestrian shooting effort there from one of the young leaders of the league. 40.4% from the field, 33.3 from deep, and 83.3 from the free throw line. It's going to be an interesting sort of time there in Toronto. I'm not saying Scotty Barnes doesn't deserve the recognition or appreciation for his game, but I don't think Scotty Barnes has been one of the 15 best players in the East, let alone injury replacement in the All-Star game. That's just me. Good on him. He's certainly going to get there at some point. He is definitely the number one option right now in Toronto, but it does just really make me wonder what exactly is going to go on there and see what kind of movements that certainly are applied up in Toronto. As I mentioned, I think Barnes is going to be the man. It's a matter of how soon he becomes the man and how deep his claim to being the man, not only on that team, but potentially the league, really will be. Finally, Washington, 0-3 on the week, 9-42 on the season, lost to Phoenix, Cleveland and Boston, and Corey Kispert was their best player. Don't ask me who he is, I just know he's been their best player. Didn't do much, they're not doing much. Really nice week from Corey by all means, but seriously, they've just got to do whatever they can to survive at this point, because it's a very bleak outlook here for the Washington Wizards. Player of the week, Donovan Mitchell. His team went 4-0. He's been the absolute catalyst for this run. He's now got some big name players back in, and he is just as smooth, if not better, than he was when they were out. He's still getting numbers, he's still getting production, he's still getting his teammates involved, and I'd like to think Darius Garland being a borderline all-star, as well as Evan Mobley being a Rookie of the Year candidate and the Defensive Player of the Year candidate over the last couple of years. There's no reason why they can't continue to push, can't continue to compete, and certainly why Donovan Mitchell cannot get the recognition that he does so thoroughly deserve with the effort that he's been putting forward. Over to the top 10 in the East, we will have a look and see exactly where everyone is sitting and exactly where we think things may be heading in the very near future. Sitting on number one on top, no problem there, the Boston Celtics. Cavaliers at number 2. As I said, they've got some form back in. They've got some players that are healthy. They've got some players that are really performing. Not a shock to see them at number 2. I think they will probably stick around that mark. It's going to be level, it's going to be a long way for them to even try and make up 5 or 6 games on them to get that spare record and make things interesting. Bucks at 3 and 4 at the Knicks. They're going to probably fluctuate a little bit, but I think New York have that chance to just really grab things if Milwaukee don't get things in line. Sixers at 5th, and I think they're going to keep slowing. Pacers at 6th, Heat at 7, that's about even. The Magic at 8, they're slowly getting there. I do know that it's going to be a matter of, well, it's just going to be a real matter of trying to push through. As I said, Pacers slowly getting there, Heat slowly getting there, Magic slowly getting there. Who's going to falter first out of those three teams? For the Pacers, you've got a really nice narrow section or selection now in Siakam and Halliburton running your offense. For Miami, Jimmy Butler still pinch hitting. For the Magic, you've got Wagner really stepping up back into the form. So don't be surprised out of all of these if you don't see the Heat start to drop a little bit as well. The Bulls looking to make a push, and the Hawks. I mean, you're talking about two teams that looked like they were going to make a significant move towards the trade deadline, but it certainly appears now that it will be the end of the season when these two clubs really go back to the drawing board to really look to construct their rosters. Over to the West, and we start with Dallas. 3-1 on the week, 29 and 23 on the season. Defeated Philadelphia, Brooklyn, New York. Lost out to Milwaukee. Luka with a massive week. 33.3 points, 10.8 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 2 steals, 0.5 blocks, 4 turnovers with that high usage rate, but it's the efficiency from the floor with shooting the basketball. 48.9 from the field, 40.4 from deep, and 72.7 from the free throw line. Dallas not making any huge moves there, but certainly doing enough there with Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington to just sort of assert themselves a little bit. I think people sleep on Daniel Gafford as a defender. I think he's one of the better defensive centers in the league. PJ Washington, a nice little wing piece there. It'll be really interesting to see exactly what continues to be made of that one there, and exactly what Dallas are going to be able to do. As I mentioned, Luka with a huge week, Kyrie with a really nice week as well. And for Dallas, you know, there's conversation about Luka climbing the MVP ladder. There's conversation about where Kyrie's at. There's conversation about the franchise in general, particularly with the thought that perhaps Mark Cuban isn't going to be in charge of basketball ops very much longer. Some really interesting moves over the last couple of weeks here just to see exactly where Dallas sit. But nice win-loss ratio on the week, some good results there, and a good performance by Luka. Denver 2-1 on the week, 36 and 17 on the season, defeated Portland and the Lakers, lost out to Sacramento. Another casual week for Nikola Jokic there. 25.3 points, 9.7 rebounds, 7.7 assists, 1.7 steals, and 1 block a game around the 3 turnover mark. 52.6 from the field, 40% from deep, 85.7 from the free throw line. And their closing performance against the Lakers is essentially why they continue to maintain their spot as the team to beat in the West. Now, it's not necessarily from a seeding standpoint, that's from a performance standpoint. Backs against the walls, big situation, need to deliver, need to get the job done. It's exactly what Denver do, whether it's through Jokic, whether it's through Murray, whoever it may be for Denver, they just manage to get things done. That game against the Lakers was one that most teams would let slip. But being a championship team, being a contender, being a really composed unit, they were able to get through it, able to get the job done. Really nice stuff there from Denver. As I said, 2-1 on the week, and you would have to just assume with the way that they are playing that seeding outside of that, they are certainly the team in the West that will likely come away with the chocolates in the West, and depending on how they perform in the postseason, could come away with all of the chocolates at the end of the year. Golden State, another big week for them as well. 3-1 on the week. It doesn't even include the major talking point for a game winner from Steph Curry, but we'll get to him anyway. 3-1 on the week, 24 and 25 leading into this one. I do believe at the time of recording they now sit at 500 through 50 games. Defeated Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and Indiana. Lost out to Atlanta. Steph Curry, just a massive week. 35 points, 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 0.8 blocks a game on 3 turnovers. 56% from the field, 48.1 from deep, 92.3 from the free throw line. Just a massive week. Golden State starting to make another run. They're going to be a team that's going to be right there around that 8, 9, 10 mark with the way they play. If they get on a run, they very well could be in the 6, but it's going to take a lot of work to get in the 6, considering you're going to have to contend with New Orleans, you're going to have to contend with the Clippers, you're going to have to contend with the Kings, everyone else above them. It's a lot of work. The Lakers are above 500, Utah are at 500. So a real spanner in the works there in the lower half of the Western Conference with their performance this week. And Steph Curry, again, I said last week, you really want to prove how valuable Steph Curry is. Trade away everyone else or trade Steph, and you'll notice the constant there. If you don't trade Steph, he will find a way for it to work. If you trade Steph, the team falls apart. And I think they're finally starting to buy back into, hey, this guy is still the man, and he can still get a shot, can still get shots up, can still make game winners. Houston on the week, 0-3, 23-28, coming back to the pack. Their little run seems to have ended right at the All-Star break. It could also be a welcome break for them. We'll see how they continue to perform as the weeks lead through. Minnesota, Indiana, Toronto defeated them. Dylan Brooks, their best player, and I think this is really indicative. When your best player only averages 16.7 points and it's Dylan Brooks, then it probably speaks of just how the team performed. 16.7 points, 2.3 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.7 blocks on less than 2 turnovers, 45.7 from the field, 57.1 from deep, 100% from the free throw line. The other thing to factor in for Houston as well, talks that Jalen Green was on the move. That didn't happen. So they certainly understand there's a window and an opportunity there for the team right now as they're getting towards that 6, 7, 8 seed sort of position there in the West. But they know that their window has only just opened. This isn't a closing window. This is an opening window. So we'll see how they continue to perform. Şengün, Fred VanVleet, Brooks, Green. I think they'll be fine. Clippers 2-1 on the week, 34-16 wins against Miami, Atlanta, and New Orleans. Kawhi Leonard just continuing to be Kawhi Leonard. 25.3 points, 6.3 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1.7 steals, and 1.3 blocks. Less than 3 turnovers. Basically 50-50-90 splits. 54.3 from the field, 52.9 from deep, 89.5 from the free throw line. One stage there last week. Kawhi Leonard, through 30 games, with a 25-5 record, had averaged 25 points on 55, 50, 90 splits. The only person in a 30-game span in the history of the NBA to ever do that is now Kawhi Leonard. That's the kind of form that he's in. This is the kind of thing that he was doing when he was wrapping up his peak at the Spurs. This is what he was doing when he first became a Clipper. This is what won Toronto the championship. And this is the sort of thing people are watching and seeing and understanding to go, hey, he's probably a chance to try and do this again. The other big talking factor for the Clippers right now is Paul George. And he's had some really good performances and he's playing really well. But the question has now been asked as to whether Paul George is a Clipper next year. And whether just the formulation in Indiana is going to be enough to potentially entice him back. Which wouldn't be a bad move if he's going to be sitting there as a third option. He can then focus defensively, be a pinch hitter. We'll see how that thing pans out, but that's the rumour coming out of things there for the Clippers. For the Lakers, another big week. Jumped above 500, 3-1, 28-26. Defeated New York, Charlotte, and New Orleans. Lost to Denver. Davis with another huge week. And the big thing for me with Anthony Davis, and this is what is really crucial to me for the Lakers, LeBron has had some really good offensive games. D'Angelo Russell's had some really good offensive games. Even Austin Reeves has chipped in at points. But Anthony Davis is just so consistent on both ends of the floor, it's not funny. And they're starting to realise it again when they're getting him more touches. This week alone, 22.5 points, 12 rebounds, 6.3 assists, so he's getting that facilitation, but it's 1.3 steals and 3 blocks a game. Less than 2 turnovers, 56.1 from the field. Didn't make a 3, and as I always say, if you are going to take them, you need to make them. But it's 84.2 from the free throw line. So he gets it done on both ends to an elite level efficiency. Yet for some reason there are games there where he goes from 20 to 22 shots a night to 10. And then when he's not getting touches, he's not getting form, he's not getting consistency, they're not winning games. There's been one constant in LA since 2020. This is it. And it's been the ultimate predicator of their success. Nothing has changed on that front. 3-1 week, massive week for the Lakers. Back above 500. And that breaks them just ahead of Utah and at the time of recording, just ahead of Golden State. So going to be a real mismatch towards that play-in tournament, particularly when you consider that it's going to probably be Sacramento or New Orleans that certainly they have to bounce around with in those sectors there. Really nice week for the Lakers. Memphis didn't win a game, 18-34 on the season, lost to Boston, New York, and Chicago. Best player in the week, G.G. Jackson. He's had some real good spurts for Memphis. You know, there's been talk at times where they've only had, they've had all these injuries and they haven't anyone available. Well, here's the thing, they are still uncovering some key pieces. And people forget there's a lot of quality to come back into this Memphis team, not only this season, but certainly at the looking at next year as well. So really interesting to see exactly what will go on there, of course, for Memphis. No more Steven Adams. He is now at Houston. Victor Oladipo, an expiring contract over to Memphis there. But GG Jackson, just one of these guys that has been able to come to the forefront. 20.3 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist on the week, 1.3 steals, 0.7 blocks, less than 2 turnovers, but it's the 42.3% from the field, and certainly 66.7 from the free throw line that is concerning. Again, though, Memphis just seem to be uncovering these players that are going to be huge assets when this team is back to full health. Minnesota, 2-1 on the week, 36-16 on the season, 20 games above 500. Defeated Houston and Milwaukee, lost to Chicago. Anthony Edwards with a really nice week. 32.7 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.7 blocks on 3 turnovers. It's that outside shooting, 46.4%. Really nice stuff. 76% from the free throw line I'd like to see up. And depending on the game style he's playing, really depends on the efficiency there for Edwards. If he's really attacking the rim, it's going to be above 50%. If he's going to be favouring that outside shot when it's falling, it's going to drop. He's really managed to get a nice balance into his game. And Minnesota just continue to tick. They're right up there in those 4 teams that are, honestly, depending on what day it is, depending on the result, just depends who the number 1 seed is. That's how things are at the top of the West right now. They are fine. They are ticking over. They are making some good progress, some good inroads. The All-Star game is going to be interesting. He and Karl Anthony Towns there probably could consider Gobert there, considering he looks like he's going to be the Defensive Player of the Year with the way he's playing. Massive run right now for Minnesota. They are going to be very much liking the idea they're going to get some healthy rest and some good rest into some key rotations there, heading back into the end of February. New Orleans 2-1 on the week there, 30-22. Crazy to think as a season as a whole, they have been just as good as Philadelphia. Obviously, the injury to Joel Embiid is key, but I wouldn't have thought that the most harmonious team in the league has been the Pelicans. Defeated Toronto and the Clippers, lost out to the Lakers, and Brandon Ingram with a week that has really been consistent for him since he broke out in 2019-20. 26.7 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 0.3 steals and 1.7 blocks. It's less than 2 turnovers that's epically efficient here, 1.3 a game, and 57, 47, 90 splits from the field. When Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson's going to be leading you like that, and you're going to be CJ McCollum that's going to be getting some pinch hitting there, and you're going to be getting some Jonas Valanciunas who's going to be getting some minutes there as well. This is why New Orleans are just that team to worry about. They could sneak into the 6th. They could very well be sitting 7th in the play-in, but I wouldn't want to be the 10th seed playing them. You know, if or certainly not the 8th seed playing them. If you're the Lakers, it's a little different. I think everyone understands why it's a little different with the Lakers. If you're Golden State, probably a little different there too. But I wouldn't want to play New Orleans, who would be in form. And yeah, it's going to be a matter of New Orleans winning by 15 to win by 2. But you get my point. They're a well-rounded side. They've got that potential. They've got that ability. They're showing it here. I mean, they're, 8 games above? They're going to be looking to get 12, 14 games above 500. Makes things really interesting and puts a lot of pressure on teams such as Phoenix, such as Sacramento, when you are really fighting it out for, 5, 6, and 7 at the moment. They're the 3 teams fighting it out for 5, 6, and 7. Going to be a really nice back end of the season matchup when you see those teams battle. OKC, they're not going to have to worry about that because right now they are sitting as one of those 4 teams competing for the number 1 spot in the West. 1-1 on the week, only played the 2 games, so very hard to judge. But still, managed to get the win over Toronto, lost to Utah. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander having to put the distribution pants on for this week and did it quite nicely. 25.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 10.5 assists a game, 1.3 steals, 2 blocks, 2 turnovers. So still efficient even when he's only passing the basketball and not shooting it. The splits really don't drop. 55.6 from the field, 50% from deep, 75% from the free throw line. Still continues to just be disrespected in the MVP conversation. OKC themselves, they see what's going on. But they've managed to snag Gordon Hayward as a key rotation and a nice veteran presence. 10 years in the league. He's been around not only as a star guy and a number 1 guy, but a guy who's really rebooted from injury and a guy who's been able to bounce back and play a key role as well. So for OKC, it brings a nice balance and a nice perspective for everybody to, look at these guys that are probably having a rough run of injury and say, hey, you can bounce back. looking at these guys that are number ones and young and maybe a little cautious, or guys that are just stepping into a role, I think he brings a tremendous balance to OKC. It will only be a positive for how that team looks moving towards the postseason. Nice pickup, and as I said, much like New York, where they've gone Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, I think Gordon Hayward's been that same impact there for OKC, who are going to look to kind of put in a very similar level of performance and option as we head down the stretch of this season. Phoenix 3-0 on the week, 31-21 on the year. Defeated Washington, Milwaukee and Utah, and I gave their player of the week for the team to Bradley Beal, 32.7 points, 4.7 rebounds, 5.3 assists with 2 steals, 3.7 turnovers, not ideal, but it's those efficient shooting splits, 57.8 from the field, 54.5 from deep, and 85.7 from the free throw line. It does speak volumes considering the effort that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant have put in this season, that Bradley Beal is going to come out and have a week like this. Did it against his old team, did it against Milwaukee, did it against Utah. Stepped out, did what he needed to do. Set more return game records against former opposing teams while he did it as well. Really nice stuff from Bradley Beal, really nice stuff from Phoenix, but as I mentioned, they're in that jumble with Sacramento and they're in that jumble with New Orleans where, depending on how everyone plays at the back end of the year, it's almost going to have to be like a round-robin mini tournament bracket sort of thing as far as Phoenix, Sacramento and New Orleans are concerned, because only 2 of them can gain 5 and 6. The other one's going to go to a play-in tournament. Now, if you're Phoenix going to a play-in tournament, that's a vastly different conversation when you play a Golden State, when you play a Lakers. Because we know for a fact that it's probably not in the best interest of everybody in the league for New Orleans or for Sacramento to be in that position. Phoenix, it's a little different. Beal, Booker, Durant, really, really, really interesting stuff. Very hard to stop when they're on, particularly from the offensive standpoint with that big 3 I just spoke about. It was a matter of time of wondering when it was going to happen. If they're going to get these levels of contributions for the last 6 weeks of the season, 8 weeks of the season, going into the playoffs, it's a very, very different looking team there, Phoenix. A very interesting outlook on what would be some shake-ups, so to speak, for the postseason. Portland 0-2, didn't win a game, 15-36. Defeated by Denver and defeated by Detroit, and that includes a 49-piece at one point there from Jeremy Grant. Anthony Simons, 27.5 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 0.5 steals, 3 turnovers a game, 45.9 from the field. 45.9 from the field, 40% from deep, 100% from the free throw line. It's going to be Simons, and it's going to be really interesting from there with Jeremy Grant, how this team continues to look. Malcolm Brogdon, I think, is a key piece still. DeAndre Ayton is still a key piece. It depends what sort of team you're wanting to build. Are you looking at that New Orleans model and going, hey, we've got a couple of guys here that could really step up and make this team interesting? Or are you still looking to move a couple of these pieces that you've brought in to really try and land a number 1 option? Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant, I think that's a really nice young-looking team, but I don't see why you have to sacrifice Malcolm Brogdon for it. Completely. Just how I see the situation there in Portland. Sacramento 2-2 on the week. There were a couple of interesting picks I could have made for this one, but it was really simple in the end. 30-21 for the year. Overall, looking at things, defeated Chicago and Denver, lost to Cleveland and Detroit. And as I mentioned, was going to be an interesting one to pick. I could have gone to De'Aaron Fox because he played really well. But I think if you're going to have 18 points, 15.5 rebounds, and 10.5 assists a game on the week over 4 games, and you're going to shoot 69.8% from the field and 40% from deep, you have to give it to Domantas Sabonis. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll keep saying until I don't feel it's actually true at any point. The best that the Sacramento Kings look is when Domantas Sabonis is running their team. Now, no trades. So at the moment, with De'Aaron Fox not wanting to commit to a contract, what are you going to get for him? What is this team going to be able to sign and look like? What are you going to be able to entice to play next to Sabonis and next to Keegan Murray? That's the next move for Sacramento. So the next 2 weeks, not only they're worrying about the playoffs, they're also worrying about what this team's going to look like post-July. Because if De'Aaron Fox walks, it's a matter of, well, where does he go? Is that the kingpin where they're looking to try and get him into New York? Are they trying to move him elsewhere? I don't know. But right now, you need to make sure that you've got a really secure team with Sabonis. If you can somehow convince De'Aaron Fox to stay, then good. But right now, it's preservation mode from a roster standpoint. Now, you're 10 games above 500 practically, or 9 here in the video. So you've still got plenty of wiggle room to compete. But you also need to look at the idea that we could very well be without our second option, and we need to find a reason to continue to sell Sabonis as the, realistically, if you wanted to turn around and sell Sabonis as the third best center in the league. You've got Jokic, you've got Embiid, you've got Sabonis. That's how that needs to be sold. That's the only success rate they're going to be able to find. And they're going to need to do it really, really quickly. Spurs didn't win a game all week, 10-42 on the season, 0-3 to be specific on the week. Lost to Cleveland and Miami, as well as Orlando. Vassell, their best player, which just says it all. If I'm not reading Victor Wembanyama's name in this point, there's not much to it overall. Vassell, 23.7 points, 4.7 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 0.3 steals and blocks, less than 2 turnovers, 50% from the field, 90% from the free throw line. Can I really fault the fact that Vassell played, a solid week? No, of course I can't fault that. But what I can fault is the fact that you've got a generational talent. The guy should be averaging 25 and 12 and 4 blocks as a rookie. That's not happening. And you're not winning games. And you could easily take 15 games extra into this, and I'm just going to keep saying it. You can put another 15 games into things right here to make this team a lot better if you just gave Wembanyama minutes and you just gave him possession of the basketball. Finally, Utah, 2-1 on the week, 26-27 on the season. So again, that team that's going to be 8, 9, 10 fighting it out for that final spot in the play-in. 2-1 on the week, defeated Milwaukee and OKC. Lost out to Phoenix. Lauri Markkanen, still their best player. 25.3 points, 6.3 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.7 steals, 58.3 from the field, 52.2 from deep, 100% from the free throw line, less than 3 turnovers. Utah, as I mentioned right now, looked like they were going to have the upper hand. It didn't look like that Golden State were going to get things together and get to 500. It didn't look like the Lakers were going to really push to do anything, and now they're going to try and make a genuine run out of the play-in tournament. So for Utah, they're on the back foot again. They're not the team that's going to be, making a bit of a slight run. But they're going to need to continue to utilise Markkanen. We're talking about a guy, 25 points a game, 58, 52, 100 splits. He can be a 50, 40, 90 guy. I think he's got Carmelo Anthony level potential as a player, peaking out as a Carmelo style player. But for Utah, it's a matter of utilising it. Again, some interesting moves at the trade deadline. I just wonder whether they're trying to sort of position themselves for free agency, whether they're trying to position themselves, over the postseason period. I don't know. It's a matter of how attractive Utah is as a team. But they're back at 500. They're making themselves more appealing than they certainly were at the start of the year and certainly through the middle of last year. Really trying to bounce back there are the Utah Jazz. Player of the week for me, he had the efficiency. Spoken about that a lot. But for me, had to be Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks. When Luka is efficient, and again, happy to go back over the numbers for the great man, because he had a nice week. 33.3 points, 10.8 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 2 steals, 0.5 blocks. 4 turnovers are going to be there with the usage, but it's 48.9 from the field, it's 40.4 from deep, 72.7 from the free throw line. You've got to be efficient and you've got to win. And I saw this come up the other day on a clip, I think it was Dan Patrick, where they were speaking about Luka and his presence and the kind of category that he's going to be. And there's no doubt from an offensive production standpoint in the regular season, he is putting up statistical anomaly. People are looking at this guy going, damn, 35, 8, and 9. Or 35, 9, and 10. Like, great, awesome. You're out in the first round. You're not winning games. You're not showing progress. You've got to be efficient. You've got to win. And that's that will eventually cement a legacy. Until that happens, you're just going to see a guy who's going to be consistently 5, 6, 7th, 8th seed. Big numbers. Might get a playoff series win here or there. Might make a fluky run. But without that, it's just numbers. And numbers don't really give you anything. A lot of guys have numbers. Not a lot of guys have championships. Not Not a lot of guys have a legacy cemented by winning. And that's what Luka needs to do. If he starts doing that with the numbers, hey, look, I get it. And this is a great example this week. Yes, he has had bigger weeks, but it hasn't had the same impact. It's getting the ball out of the hands and getting usage into others that's going to produce those results. And I hear, oh, but that's a team thing. It is, but when you're the captain and the leader of the team, the onus is on you. Really simple stuff. Really big week from Luka. Top 10 in the West. As I said, things really tightening up. You look at that top 10 there for the Timberwolves, for the Thunder, the Clippers, and the Nuggets. They are sharing the number one seed like a tape trader's market in the 90s. They are just backwards and forwards with who the number one seed is. They're probably going to be your 4. As I said, you're then fighting out your top 6 with 3 spots. The Suns, the Kings, and the Pelicans. The Mavs are somehow still around there. But it's your Lakers and your Jazz. You know, they're going to be fighting in it as well. Golden State's just at 500. So when you look at a team, then I mean they've only just become 500 after the week had concluded. So all of a sudden, you may actually have 4 teams now, I think about it, with Dallas, who may very well be competing for those 2 teams. But then you've got another 3 teams competing for another 2 spots. And you wouldn't want to be slipping if you are any of the teams outside of that top 4 in the West. Really competitive season so far, and it's only going to be more competitive as the year wears on. Thanks for tuning in, guys. That has been my review for Week 15 of the 2023-24 NBA season. I'm out.